Hey, it's Stu, and this is going to be my most unhinged haul video, maybe ever. I just, for the sake of posterity and my future self looking back, I think all of these books cost just over $100, which I could be saving the $100. But that leads to a little bit over $3, I think, per book if we add it all up. And I guess that matters to me. I do care about the thrift. Sidebar, which I have to say quickly because otherwise it's going to be way too long of a video. My friends do not encourage me to curb myself at all. When discussing with my friends about my need, my guilt about curbing myself in my hauls, I often get really enabled with comments like, why you have a whole empty bookshelf? Why you have a whole bunch of, like, your front shelves are just all display, but you're not actually using them as bookshelves? Why, when you're always like, it's all, you donate all your books and you get them from the Friends of the Library or other donation systems? There's a lot of enabling going on in my life, and maybe when I show them this video, they'll be like, never mind, we have to help you. Somehow curb your enthusiasm around book collecting and or hauling. I can't really even call myself a book collector. I've given up collector's editions lots of times and said I'm not a book collector. I like to have books around my life. The books that I have, I absolutely want to read, with very few exceptions. And once I read them, I give them away. So there we have it. No more ranting, because really, the first 3 books I'm going to show you are from an independent bookstore about once a quarter of a year. So like 3 or 4 times a year, I go to some sort of my favorite local independent bookstores and try to, maybe I exchange some books and maybe I use some credit. Maybe I have a gift certificate. Today I didn't. I actually stopped to use the restroom, lying to myself, but nothing could pull me in, and some things did. So in the used section, I found The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa, and this is a translated book, so bear with me, please, since the translator is inside and I don't have the best shadows here to read the name. Yeah, it's Stefan Snyder. Super hype book. I'm really happy to have found it for a very good price. Don't Fear the Reaper by Stephen Graham Jones. I've recently read The Only Good Indians. I loved that book. And if someone was like, oh, but here are the problems with that book, that was like the one book I'd be like, no, you don't get to talk to me about the problems. I just get to have my adoration for Stephen Graham Jones and a Montanan author and that setting. Anyway, super excited to find this. This was a bargain book, so this is a new book, which I rarely buy, but at a highly discounted price. So I did it for Stephen Graham Jones. And then finally, used and in fantastic, like, new condition, here it is, James by Percival Everett. I'm currently reading my second Percival Everett book, which is Telephone. I'm really liking it. I really like his writing style, and for that reason, and for the fact that this is, I mean, such a maybe the most talked about book I've ever experienced. It won the National Book Award and the Pulitzer, and Percival Everett has been up for it several times, with Telephone, I think, included. Yeah, I was super excited to find it, and I did. I found it today. So that being said, and I think I knew this was coming, because earlier this week, or maybe it was the end of last week, whatever, at a little free library, I found this edition of Huckleberry Finn. I have an edition, a really vintage edition of Huckleberry Finn that I'm going to put in my street little free library, probably after I'm done making this video or tomorrow, because I think this is such a fantastic, because of a newer cover, and I actually think that they would look really good on display together. So that's probably what's going to happen. Now to thrift stores with book sales, little free libraries, and Friends of the Library situations. I I found at a little free library this brick of a book, and after finding Donna Tartt a few weeks ago, and one other, which I'm about to show you, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Noel by Susanna Clarke, might actually, these 3 books, like, if you're going to force me into commitment to just stop saying that I'm not a big book, or whatever trepidation I have around big books, I think it's that it's going to slow me down. And I think at some point I'm going to just say I should slow down. Like, that will serve me in the moment. And getting into a book like this, providing I like it, I have high expectations that I will. But then, a book such as this, found at a little free library, could get me over my hang up around big books. So too could the Book of Jacob by Olga Tokarczuk. Yeah, I have not yet read an Olga. I was hoping Drive Your Plow would come into my life in this sort of thrifting way, because I don't order books online or again, buy them new, unless they're like that Stephen Graham Jones on the bargain book table. Alas, it hasn't. I plan to read Imposium soon, and then now I have her most recent release. This isn't actually even an arc, which, again, which will tell me you can just get over your big book, whatever it is, and get right to it. So, keeping on the vein of authors that I've read before, are books that I have sort of some collections of. That's what I'm going to go over next. At the Friends Little Library, I found this Murakami. I am maybe 1 month ago, a donor had given the whole Murakami collection. I made a haul video about that. So here's one to add to it. It wasn't in that collection. But how do I feel about Murakami? Like a lot of people feel about Murakami. Like, I'm not thrilled at the way he writes female characters. However, I've read a lot of authors, even recently, that just either don't write female characters or write female characters only to advance their male characters' heroism or plotline, and or write really crappy female characters. So, yeah. I think Murakami is such a much read that I'm happy to have a collection. Do I think I'll get to it all? Probably in the time that I will own this collection, before I move. Maybe not, but I definitely know that my Murakami collection I could find a very happy home for. So I was happy to find this book. I should limit the rants, otherwise this video will be so long. This vintage edition of Song of Solomon. I also have a Toni Morrison collection, and so far they're all the original editions, with the exception, I think, The Bluest Eye. I have a more, not the most recent, but I have a more contemporary edition in paperback, but all the rest are these hardbacks. So I was super happy to find this. I read my first Toni Morrison of sort of my post new adult life in this last reading time. So great to find this beautiful book to add to the collection. Speaking of collections, I have been reading some trilogies, and one trilogy that I started was the Old Filth one by Jane Gardam. And when I found this in a thrift store, The People on Privilege Hill, I was like, oh my gosh, that's the 3rd book, because I have the first 2 and not the 3rd. Alas, I was mistaken. This is not the 3rd book. Yeah, Google helped me out with that. This is a collection of short stories, but I was happy to find it anyway, and I will continue my search for that 3rd book in that trilogy. With the same amount of joy and serendipity, I did find Oh, William by Elizabeth Strout, and this is the 3rd book of a trilogy that I have right here. I have Lucy Barton. My name is Lucy Barton. Yeah, why? Yeah, Anything is Possible, and which is a Pulitzer winner. And then, William, I believe, rounds that out. I don't plan on starting this trilogy probably until the end of the year, because I have Rachel Cusk, who I'd like to start, and I'd like to finish the couple that I'm in, and I'm in the Napolitan series as well. But I really adored the Olive Kittredge duology. So this was a much anticipated find. That was at a thrift store. In a little free library, speaking of trilogy, I found the Berrytown trilogy in its completion. Oh, Roddy Doyle, like Patty Clark, ha ha ha. Like, I didn't need another book about boys being boys. I did like Roddy Clark's writing style, but I didn't need that in a book. And also, I remember liking The Commitments as a movie. So what I was thinking is, in the summer, I will see a friend who maybe would want to rewatch the movie with me. I'll try to read the book before. If I like the book, I'll continue with the trilogy. Or if I say, you know what, forget it all, this just goes back into to a little free library. Speaking of little free libraries, if you've been watching my videos, you know that I unread a Frederick Bachman book. It was The Winners, because speaking of trilogies, it was the third in the Beartown trilogy, and I didn't and haven't found the other two, and I thought, why am I having this giant book, speaking of big books, sitting on a shelf that I'm just not going to get to until I find those other, so it should be out there. I got it at a Friends of the Library pop-up sale, yeah. Anyway, I think on the very same day that I unhauled that Frederick Bachman, I found Anxious People, which I have a good deal of excitement to read. The first two Bachmans, what I read, A Man Called Ova and My Grandma Told Me to Tell You She's Sorry, I did via audio. I think I might do this via audio too. It's one that I'm like, Bachman you turn to when you want depth but warm-heartedness. That's how I think about Bachman, and so that's why I'm glad to have one of those on my shelf. Not quite a cozy, but heartwarming nonetheless. David Golder by Irene Nemirovsky. I held this at the Friends of the Library, and I was talking to my friend about it. I'm like, I've read this author. I'm trying to put my mind onto where. I did a little looking around. The name of the book I read was the one that she didn't finish because she was sent to Auschwitz. And I think this is one that she did finish. I think everything was published posthumously by this author, as she wasn't allowed to write or publish because she was Jewish during the tyranny of Hitler and the Holocaust. So the other book that I read by her was a found book by me. It was found in a hostel when I was staying in Prague some 20 years ago, and just finding this novella brought back a lot of memories, and yeah, I feel like I'm going to hold on to it because of that emotionality for longer than I should, because it is just a novella and I do quite want to get to it. I haven't read that I can remember any Kate Atkinson, even though I did stay quite some time in Yorkshire. I got this book at the Friends of the Library because there was a customer there that just couldn't stop raving about this book. And I was like, fine, okay, I have already 3 Kate Atkinson and I want to try to get to her. But give me this one. I did the sample audio, really liked it, like immediately was sucked in, had to kind of pull myself away because I have other books. So this is going to be a get to soon, like in the month of March. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to do it via audio. That's behind the scenes of the museum, by the way. Okay, I was at a book sale at a thrift store, and it was buy 4 books and get the 5th one for free. Yeah, and so can we call this my 5th book, or can we call it one of the books to get to that point? I don't know, those buy whatever, get one free kind of situations. They probably get me to buy more books than I should, but this is Emma McEwen's Atonement. I keep thinking that I've read this book. I keep being quite sure that I've read this book. And then I wonder if I'm conflating it with, I think it's called Frank's Ashes by McCourt. Why? Because I think that, yeah, that book was also at this thrift store, and I'm like, wait, am I conflating? This is sort of known to be Ian McEwan's magnum opus. I have Saturday and another one right there. As I don't really know if I read this book, and even if I have, I couldn't, when I was reading the synopsis, I was like, that doesn't sound familiar. Okay, for $3, I could have this and give it a try, and maybe it be my first McEwan that I read, because I need to get to them. I have on my planned, at least hopeful planned, an Ayanna Mathis book, which is the 12 Tribes of Hattie. And I hope to get to it. It's on my planned or potential Black History Month TBR 2. So I was happy to find The Unsettled. I haven't read this author, but reading the synopsis of both of that book, which I hope to get to, and this one, she seems like someone who I could quite enjoy. So, there'll be an empty spot when I pull her book to read it, and this can take its place. It's also a book of the month, and I haven't had very many book of the months lately. I was just thinking, this was in October of 2023, and yeah, since I don't, like, I used to haul book of the month because I'd be like, I don't know even where to start, and now I have a lot of ideas of where to start. So anyway, that was part of the 5x4 get the 5th free at a different thrift store while I was doing something different there. I found That Kind of Mother by Rumaan Alam. This was a $1.99 book. I decided to bump this onto I put this on my Black History Month part 2 TBR, because I just finished reading The Vanishing Half, and in this book, and in The Vanishing Half, there's two twins. One marries a very, very dark man and ends up having dark children, and the twins are light-skinned, and the other one becomes white, lives a white life, and the attitudes towards colorism, what race is, what your heritage mean, was, I thought, something that Britt Bennett did very well. And I think Rumaan Alam in this book is dealing with similar themes. There's a mother who adopts the child of her nanny, who's a Black woman. She has a Black child and she dies in childbirth, and the white mother of another child adopts. So she has two children, one's Black and one's white. So I feel like it's going to be similar themes, and I it's on my TBR right now without ever having discussed it with anybody except for in my haul video. Okay, the last book of an author. This is already an 18-minute video, and I'm half done, okay? The last book of an author who I have before is this wonderful book by Tin House. Its companion is right there, The Liberators by E.J. Coe. The Magical Language of Others is about, it's a memoir. I'm not really a memoir person, but this one really drew me in. Yeah, I got this one for 75 cents. Yeah, at the 50% off sale. And anyway, E.J. Coe's parents, when she was in her early teens, I believe, re-immigrated back to South Korea, and these are the letters from her mother, which she then reflects upon. Kind of my segue into what's coming next is this water. So recently I've read quite some atmospheric books that are quite wet. So Sea Scraper, Mucklefugga, and my least favorite of those was of this list that I'm giving you was the Wild Dark Shore. So I have been kind of like, it's put me in the mood to look out for that kind of wet atmospheric situation. And that got me to, again, I think this was a 75-cent book, haul this one, The Highest Tide by Jim Lynch. This is a Pacific Northwestern author and setting, and this is a coming of age But I think we're going to get some of that sort of like Pacific Northwest atmosphere and on the Pacific Northwest coast. I think this book was published in 2005, so it is a little bit old. Speaking of Mucklefugga, oh my gosh, I loved that book, and I've recommended it to so many people. Clear by Caris Davis is also set in Scotland in a Scottish isle. It has to do with something that I hadn't heard of before until I read the synopsis for this book, something called the Scottish Clearances, where people were being cleared, residents were being cleared off of islands for agriculture reasons or something. Feels like a bit of a blight in history. The premise of this book is that there's a preacher that goes to an isolated isle to get rid of the last resident, has an accident, like falls off the cliff, and then this resident nurtures him back to health. Yeah, so I think this book is going to explore a lot of things. Speaking of Scotland, the Pacific Northwest, and Mucklefugga. I found this book, which is Under the Wide and Starry Sky by Nancy Horan. Why are you bringing all these things up together? Because this book actually does. So this is a Pacific Northwest author. And what she's exploring in this book is the wife of Robert Louis Stevenson, and in Mucklefugga there's the ghost of Robert Louis Stevenson. So I just felt like it was all coming together, and I kind of want to halt all reading plans and just sort of like read these series of books together. I just already have a lot of plans that I would feel like I was not going to a party if I didn't finish that TBR that I just did. So maybe coming up next. Next, I'm going to talk about, and let me scoot over just a little, books that came from, all of the thrifts, little free libraries, book sales, etc. That I don't know the author. I haven't read the author before, and I'm taking a little bit of a chance. And this is a surprisingly large pile for as discerning as I thought that I have been being. But here we go. I have 3 books that the setting is Australia. And the reason that I hauled all 3 of them is because in my mind, I thought I just need, some more books whose setting is Australia. Kind of in the same sort of vein of the Clearances being a blight. Only Killers and Thieves by Paul Howarth explores a really dark part of Australia's history, which was an arm of the British colonial forces that basically was set out to, murder Aboriginal people. That's what I got from the synopsis. And this is maybe looking at, this is probably going to look at a critical yet albeit white perspective, or colonizer's perspective. Lost and Found by Brooke Davis is a elderly woman and a little girl protagonist relationship. And I loved this color. It's an Australian author and set in Australia. And I like that premise. I like that. I really like intergenerational friendships as a theme. Pastarola Rising by Azhar Abidi is this reminds me a little bit of the same, like, in vibe as Washington Black, this kind of adventure around the world and some kind of sailing ship apparatus. And that's what I think this is going to be, a bit of a Jules Verne kind of situation. Not a very big book. And again, an Australian, I think Pakistani author. We have Yasmin Croweather's The Saffron Kitchen. This is, the 2 settings are London and maybe Tehran, but at least Iran. And again, not a very big book, but I'm interested in said settings. The Woman Who Watches Over the World by Linda Hogan is a memoir. Again, I'm super not into memoir. This doesn't also exist digitally, so I had to spend some time, reading into it to make sure I could hang. But Linda Hogan is a Chickasaw, a member of the Chickasaw tribe, and she's explaining her experience growing up as a member of the Chickasaw tribe. Toy City also doesn't have a digital copy, but it's by Lee Dong Ha. I think this is a republished classic. It's translated, and the translator is on the front, but I just can't see it, by Chi Young Kim. In this, we get the point of view of a 10-year-old child, post-Korean War, impoverished, and just him navigating with his child's mind and eyes the situation in South Korea during that time. The Storm We Made by Vanessa Chan is World War II Pacific theater. This is about a Malay spy into the Japanese occupational forces. Golden Child by Claire Adam, another book of the month from 2019, January 2019. This setting and author are from Trinidad, and I recently hauled one from a book also from Pacific Islands. Oh my God, Where the Virgin. No. Anyway, I recently hauled another island book, and I don't have that representation very much. I don't think I have another book by a Trinidadi author and or setting, so I'm really happy to have that kind of diversity on my shelves. Okay, this was one of my 5 buy 4, get 1 free, and this is Good Fortune by C.K. Chow. Look at this cover. I believe this is a romance. What am I doing calling a contemporary romance when we all know how I feel about them? However, every once in a while, one needs said thing. And because there was no way I was leaving there without buying 5 books, this happened to be one of them, really, for its cover. Because, again, I don't jive that well with contemporary romance, just me. And then the last book I got in that 4 books get 1 free was this Emma Straub, All Adults Here. This is a family drama, and Elizabeth Strout gave it props. I'm trying to think if I remember where the setting is. I think that I didn't choose several books because the setting was LA, and I just spent a lot of time in LA. I'm still in LA with Percival Everett's Telephone, and LA is not my favorite setting. It's just too overdone, in my opinion. Nothing against the city of LA, just that. So I have been kind of picky about my setting, and I think I was trying to find some books that weren't LA and or New York, but I don't know if I nailed it on this or not. I know that, again, I was getting 5 books no matter what. Brown Girls by Daphne Palasi Andrade. Yeah, Andrade. This has a blurb from Raven Lalani, and this is New York. This is definitely New York, and it's immigrant stories from, I think it's Queens. Yeah, I like, look at this beautiful cover. The synopsis was something I was very interested in. Jennifer Clement's Prayers for the Stolen. I read some of the first pages of this book with a friend. This is going to be a very, very heavy-hitting book. About a topic that needs more people telling stories about it, and that is the femicide situation in Mexico. Yeah, and it's a fantastic cover. Making Toast by Roger Rosenblatt. I don't know. again, when I read more into this, it's a memoir. I'm not really a memoir person, but it's such a novella. And well, you know what I was thinking about? I was thinking I went to see My Father, a book that I just recently hauled, which explores the woman who recently lost her husband's perspective of going to live with her father and bringing her child or children along. In this book, the father loses the daughter, and then the grandkids come and become part of his life. And so I think they're exploring very similar themes, but from really different intimate points of view. And I think that's what made me haul this book, that I want to partner read it with I Went to See My Father. I hope I remember that, because this is like too many things to remember right now. History of Wolves by Emily Fridland. Somebody reviewed this recently. Again, I got to get better at remembering who's doing these reviews and what's drawing my attention. But this is Minnesota. This is a girl, I believe, is raised in a remote place by a cult, and then she ends up babysitting for some neighbors. And so she's gonna sort of experience, I think there's like gonna be similar themes in this. This is my prediction, as kind of muckelflugga, in that you're living in this really isolated place with a worldview that's, you know, quite limited by the isolation, and an outsider kind of comes in, and are they right or are they just different kind of situation. Same vibe. Sunstorm by Asa Larson. Let's just be, this was in not great condition, but I do love a well-loved book, and there are some stickers right in the front that make me very happy. This was a little free library, and I've unhauled several books off my mystery thriller, or even unread, so I had space. Guess this one gets to take up a little bit of that space. The Last Summer of the Death Wires by Francisco X. Stork. This is a Mexican author. However, this is not in translation. So maybe a Mexican-American young adult. And yeah, I don't have any of those. I had a space in young adult, so I decided that this would be a good haul. Thrift store, $3. For its cover, that's all I can say. I'm working a lot of these colors on my display, and I think other people's clothes. It's a mystery set in Berlin. I think it's two Americans that go to Berlin. I was somewhat intrigued by the premise. I don't necessarily need more mysteries, but as I have room, and I wanted this for display, so yeah, that's how unhinged this haul is. I thought, you know, why not haul this book for a couple bucks for my display? And then finally, this last one is a book that I passed up several times to buy, but when I saw it in a little free library, I thought, why not? Speaking of the book of the month, this is a book of the month from January 2018, and this is Lenny Zumas's Red Clocks. What made me grab it this time? This is a Portland, Oregon author, and I do have a little stack of Portland authors that I plan to read if I get to Oregon, or to Oregon authors, yeah, to Oregon authors that I do kind of plan to read. If I get to Oregon this year, I normally get out in to the woods for some time, and I do like reading books while in settings. So kind of as I did last year when I went to New York and I read, you know, around the time that I was going to New York, books with New York in the setting, I kind of compiled a little Oregon setting pile. This came from a little free library, so if I don't get to it, or if I read more in the synopsis and decide it's not for me, then like all my books, actually, I don't know why I say that, for that came from, it goes right back into a little free library. Oh my gosh, I don't even know the count. I know it's more than 40. It's maybe 50 books here. It is unhinged. It's unhinged. It's unhinged. I get to now I'm listening to Frankenstein, loving it. So what I get to do is put in my headphones, clean my house, because that's what I'm doing on my day off, and then sort of redesign all of these bookshelves and my displays to fit these books, or make some decisions of what needs to be pulled so that these books can fit. So until next time, and hopefully it's not another unhinged haul video. Hopefully it's a review video. I'll see you then.